We enter Donut County, establishing the scene in the main character's house. The first scene, you can reply to the text with an emoji or with a word reply. There are only 2 buttons. It's very simple. You're not learning mechanics here, you're just learning about the characters. It's established that the characters work at a donut shop. This mechanic is also very simple, just opening the blinds. And here you're learning the main mechanic of the game. You control the hole that the objects are falling into, and you want to collect all the objects in the scene. As you collect more objects, the hole gets bigger and bigger until you can like swallow up entire buildings. It's very smart here that it starts with a very small scene and gets more and more chaotic with the duck riding around on the scooter and eventually getting swallowed up by the hole. Here we enter the donut shop. This is where our 2 main characters work. And again, we are reintroduced to the texting. We learn that the raccoon is playing a game. Within this game, I guess. He's level 9, and we learn that the game is actually the hole that he has like unleashed on the town. There's a sinkhole that swallows up the entire town. Here we are flash forwarded, and the conflict of the entire city being underground and everyone blaming BK, the raccoon. This is the first big level. It's a full-size, not tutorial level. It's a little bit hard to get the hang of. As you can see, they just swallowed up the telescope, which is not what you would think to go to first because it is a bigger object, but it is a better fit. And it started again with a smaller scene, and then it widens the shot so you get more objects in the scene. And it gets a bit more complex, a bit harder as you're trying to move around and eventually swallow this house. I really enjoy the art and the characters. I think it's fun the way that they interact with the sinkhole itself, how they know what's happening but also are very confused. I also enjoy the really low poly, simple colors. It's very cartoony, very cute, but not in a stereotypical cartoony cute way. I think it works very well for a video game. Throughout the levels, there are different mechanics that are introduced. In some there are exploding fireworks, in some there's water. Each level is really unique, but all focus on that main mechanic of the sinkhole eating up this entire town. Here you can see the oven actually made the sinkhole smoke, and that smoke is making the hot air balloon move up and up and up more and more until it breaks up the rocks, and eventually the camera widens and you can swallow up the rocks with the sinkhole. Things break apart and make it easier when it's time. And eventually, at the end of each level, you swallow up the entire house and the landscape around it. I think here, the person doing the playthrough forgot that one rock in the back, yeah. But the level ends once you consume everything. Here's more story. This is a cutscene. I wish that the creators had employed more interactive cutscenes, such as I've got an ad. I wish that the developers would have included more interactive cutscenes that are kind of similar to the text messages, because I do feel like there are a lot of those just talking back and forth cutscenes. Here there's a light that you interact with. It follows the hole. And as you can see, the snakes try to jump up and run away. There are also chickens, so you kind of figure that after the snakes try to run away, that the chickens might. And we realize that this character is looking for the snakes because he wants to keep his chickens alive. And now you are purposely making the snake danger meter go up, causing chaos. And just seeing what happens. I think that this game does it really well, where you are just encouraged to like start trouble, start mischief, and then eventually it gets very intense, very explosions, and you don't even know what's going on towards the end of each level. And it's very funny. It's very entertaining. So as you can see, the snake danger meter just exploded because it got too high. And everything breaks apart. And as the sinkhole gets bigger and bigger, you can swallow the rocks and the entire buildings in it. And again, here we are at the cutscene, the flash forward, and we see each character that is in the level in this cutscene. So we know how they all end up. This is a very fun level. It introduces more characters, more animals. And as we can see, this dog is jumping around. It's too big to fall in, but eventually it goes. Once we do that, the scene opens up more, and we are introduced to the water. The water mechanic is very different. Once the hole fills up with water, you can't absorb any objects. So you need to go over to the bird, as I just did, and the bird will drink the water. There it is again, filled up with water, and the bird drinks the water to get rid of it. But in order to collect some of these objects, you can't avoid the water completely. So you need to keep going back to the bird so that the bird can drink the water and get rid of it. There are also hidden objects within the water, such as the little fish. And as the player notices these objects, instead of avoiding the water completely, they come back to the water because they know that there are more objects in there. That level was a shorter one, it was a smaller one, but it did introduce a very important game mechanic that may have taken players a little bit longer to understand. So I do think that watching this playthrough, I'm sure they've played this game before and they got through it a bit quicker, but that is a very exploring and learning level. So I think that it was a very good choice to keep it on a smaller scale. Here we're introduced to another game mechanic, the fire. As you can see, there's a campfire in the middle. The coyote is watching through the tent. And we just start off with, as we do with every level, taking up the grass and taking up the small rocks. There's a cart full of corn, and once we knock that over, we can absorb the corn. Eventually, it's wide enough to take the fire, but the fire creates smoke, and then the corn that was in the sinkhole creates popcorn. So again, the camera widens out and we get a bigger shot, just of more of the same stuff. This is a very simple level as well because it introduces a game mechanic that has been hinted at, but not as much to this extent. I think the first 3 or so levels do a very good job of establishing the main game mechanic, which is the sinkhole that grows as it absorbs more things. And I think that these past 2 levels have done a great job of introducing new concepts to this original game mechanic. Again, we have more of the cutscene establishing the characters, and then we see a flashback to the sinkhole destroying their home. This level is very fun. It's one of my favorites. Here we start off, as we do with every level, taking up the stones and the grass and all the very, very small objects. I like that every level starts this way because it's very easy to start. It's not intimidating, there's no new game mechanics until you've already gotten a good start to the level. As you can see here, the sinkhole has grabbed onto this carrot and we notice that the rabbits follow it. So using that, we can get this rabbit out of the pen. And the rabbits take a bite of the carrot. Then we can take the rabbits, but as we see, they multiply. There's a bit of a pause as we don't quite know what's going on, what those hearts are for, I guess, and what's going to happen. So we continue with the level as normal. And the sinkhole gets bigger and bigger as it does. We can take more rabbits into it, and then we get this cutscene again with more hearts and more rabbits in there. So eventually we can eventually we get the rest of the rabbits in the scene. There are now 6 rabbits in the sinkhole. And the babies. They all fly out and explode, and then everything explodes and it's chaos. And that's the level. We go back to another cutscene. And here we are at a very small scene. We see again that there is another campfire and a crow with popcorn. So we recall back to that first campfire and popcorn level. I think it's very smart visually to be able to have that and recognize that this is an old game mechanic that we're going to use again. The smoke, the characters interact differently with it, and we see here that it is ignited. And we can ignite objects on fire when we take those coals from the grill. So here we're igniting all of the trees on fire, everything on fire. So this is a new spin on this old established game mechanic. We can light everything on fire, and now there are smaller objects falling off that we can absorb into the sinkhole. And as it gets bigger and bigger, we can take bigger things, such as a picnic table, and eventually the camper. Throughout the game, birds help a lot. As we see here, there's that crow that throws out a coal every time. And also with the water, there's the big bird that will drink the water. And each level ties in with the story, with the characters in it falling into the sinkhole, and eventually we see them again in the flash forward cutscene, all gathered around the campfire, all wondering how they got into this mess. So here we are again. This is the last level I'm going to commentary on, but I really enjoyed this one. This was the only level that when I was playing through it, I got caught up on. So I do think that there may be some way to make this more clear what the path is. As you can see, there's a stand right here, and it dispenses fireworks. This was the part that I got caught up on because I wasn't sure where the firework should go, and I didn't realize that those birds were actually interactable. So here we are again, taking one of those fireworks, and you have a certain amount of time before it goes off, and then you hit the platform a couple times. Once more. and that character and those objects fall. There's also a campfire, which is a familiar and old game mechanic. We know that it will start a fire in the sinkhole. There's also popcorn again, very familiar. Eventually we can swallow up all of the bigger objects such as the car, the building, the rocks, as we do with every level. However, once the stand is in there, it's very explosive and sets off more fireworks. And that is all. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Jay. Thank you. This is Donut County.